Lee, I think we have everybody on and it's 11 o'clock, so we can get started.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Good morning. Calling the roll for the Monday, June 28th Board of Control meeting. It is 11 a.m. Dale Miller.
Here.
Nan Baker. Here. Trevor Mackler serving as an alternate for Purnell Jones.
Here.
Lee Tucker serving as an alternate for the fiscal officer.
Here.
Mike Dever.
Here.
Catherine Tkachuk. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay. Let's review the minutes from last Monday's meeting, June 21st. Get approval of the minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? If there are no corrections or changes, I make a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second from Dever.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes approved. Is there any public comment today? Hearing no public comment, we'll move on to contracts and awards. Reviewing the new items.
First item, BC 2021-305, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 3953 and enter into a contract with Prospectus Architecture LLC in the amount not to exceed $478,100 for professional design services for the diversion center.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and good morning, Board of Control members. This is Matt Reimer representing the Department of Public Works on this item. This item is related to the County Permanent Diversion Center. To put in perspective and context the other pieces, you've heard a lot lately about the stand-up of the interim diversion facility out on East 55th in the Oriana House facility, and that operation is now up and running. At the same time and in parallel, we've been planning for the potential permanent diversion facility as briefed throughout the diversion center briefings. This is the first aspect related to the permanent diversion center actions. This is an architect and engineering services contract for the design, programming, and site selection services, site analysis services that'll go towards identifying, locating, and then designing the permanent diversion facility for Cuyahoga County. This specific contract is a Part 1 contract, which means that we are just awarding the portion related to the architectural programming piece and the site selection analysis piece. A Part 2 contract would come before the respective, whether it be Board of Control or Council, depending on the price. Part 2 would come before you, before the design services would actually begin on that portion of the contract. This contract was selected through a competitive request for qualifications. This vendor was not only selected as one of the highest ranking vendors from their qualification statement, but also a secondary interview was conducted with 4 of the submitters of qualification statements. And this is the recommended architect and engineer to carry out these services. They have significant experience in the behavioral health realm, as well as working on both new building and existing building renovation projects. So I respectfully stand ready to answer any of your questions.
Are there any questions on this item?
Yes, this is Dale. And in your presentation, you said that this firm was one of the highest rated, but kind of implied that they were not the highest rated. Could you elaborate on that?
Forgive my language, Councilman Miller. I just meant at the stage that shortlisted for interviews, they were among the highest to be rated, to be selected to go to the interview stage, and then they were selected as the highest from that secondary stage. Hope that clarifies. So
were they the highest rated in the initial rankings or not?
I'll have to go back to my files on that, Councilman. We shortlisted the top 4 and then went on to the interviews and the interview stage, as well as considering their qualification statement, then made the selection. The selection committee was a breadth of experience across Cuyahoga County leadership, and facilitated by the Department of Public Works.
And how many overall applied?
Councilman, we had 10 statements of qualification submitted, and 4 were interviewed, and this is the approved and recommended provider.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question,
Questions?
Sharon.
Go ahead, Councilwoman Baker.
Do we know what the cost will be for part 2?
As of right now, if I could, Matt, I'll just jump in. As of right now, we don't know what the cost for part 2 will be because we're going to first go through this programming phase, and we have a good jump start on this. The Pulitzer group assisted us on the front end for programming the interim solution or the diversion center. So we're going to go back. We're going to evaluate what has been put in place. And what potential ways we could expand the program and enhance it. And then in turn, when we identify the site in the future, we hope, then, what that is it an existing building or is it a site that's been cleared where we'll build brand new? So the overall cost of the second phase has not yet been determined.
Thanks, Mike. If I may, so the total cost of this is really the beginning of entering into this whole project. So do we have an approximate total cost from now to ribbon cutting of opening the doors?
So as for now, when we were initially calculating what we thought, and this was 3 years ago when we first brought a consultant in to give us some figures on what we thought a 50-person bed would cost to build out, we were in the range of $20 million. We are now looking at potentially up to in the neighborhood of 150 beds at a facility. So we do not have a hard number on that yet. But as we continue to develop through the programming and then the potential site, I think that's when we'll come up with the overall estimated cost for the facility.
Thanks, Mike. If I may continue, the money for the funding source is the opioid mitigation fund. What is left out of that fund and how far can we go with that fund before we have to start supporting it through either general fund or capital fund or even whatever the funding source is going to be? How far can we go with the money that's there?
Councilwoman, I'll have to get back to you on that question. I don't know specifically of what is the overall dollars that are available through the opioid fund. And I'm not sure if Catherine's on, she has any facts or figures on that.
I do not.
Mike, this is Trevor. After we take the operating dollars to the Adams Board for the next 2 years to operate the temporary diversion center, and after the round 1 of opioid dollars, I would say probably somewhere between $80 and $85 million is left in the fund, give or take. We had about 120. Round 1 was 23 or so million. The Adams Board contract was close to 10, so somewhere around 90 million.
Thanks, Trevor.
Okay. Is if I may, is the Adams Board involved in this process and all the way through as far as who's being selected, how the building should look and design, where it should potentially be? Are they involved at all?
In the programming phase, yes, they will be, as we're going to be continuing to, we've retained the services of Pulitzer Company to provide basically owner representative services on this. And so they'll help lead us through this discussion. As you know, Pulitzer has a long history in this sector. So I'm sorry, I lost track. Once again, what was your question?
Is the Adams Board involved in this process?
That's right. So the contract we do have with the Adams Board is just for the temporary diversion center. So that and that has a 2-year time frame on it. I do not know the status of the next phase of that, and I believe maybe Brandy Carney would probably be best to answer that, and unfortunately, she's not on the call right now, but I'm sure we can get that answer for you.
If my last comment, I guess what I'm concerned about is that we are in the Board of Control able to accept requests 500,000 or less, and the next one will probably be 500,000 or less. And we're moving on a project that is pretty big. And I don't know if, like with the jail, which we're going to have an overview on Tuesday, what does it look like? What are we engaged in, and how much of county dollars will have to be invested? What is the big picture of things? I mean, right now we're only talking about, well, not really. We're talking about the beginning of the process, but I just wonder, is there any concern about making sure all council members are on board as to how much we think we're going to spend, how many beds? I mean, we could be up to 40 or 50 million by the time we get to the point where we've gone through Board of Control and spent maybe $1 million on or more. I don't know how many times you'll be back, but I don't know how many of the council members know. I didn't know what this vision looks like from the time that we're starting today with asking for 500,000 or 478 to the time that we open up the doors. Is there any, what's your thought on that, Mike?
So when we started the process for the interim diversion center, I was under the impression that there was ample conversation about, getting this off the ground and getting started. The intent of this first contract is really to continue to hone that programming phase of this so that we know where are we going into this new facility. So that's what this consultant would do on the front end. It's going through that programming piece, and then it's also trying to identify. There's no reason why this can't go back to council for the next phase of it. This is just to get us started so we have that more information so we can see what the global picture is going to be. The time frame on this piece also is roughly about 6 to 7 months. And then I would anticipate that we're coming back to either the Board of Control and or County Council, the entire body, probably in the first quarter of 2022. I'm sorry. And for a more lengthy discussion about where the facility is going to be, and then, what is the overall program and budget associated. So this really gets us started to have more of that detailed information so that we can then in turn give the greater picture. Once again, we're in a 2-year time frame of the current facility. Yeah. And our hope is that we would get this accomplished or finished by that time. I would say we're probably not going to get there because just construction is going to take some time. But this next phase is very important for us to get a bigger or the more global picture of where we are going with diversion in the future. And I suggest Brandy Carney possibly join us in the near future again for an update, and maybe it's through public safety.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. And certainly today to get started, I know that we all agreed that we wanted a diversion center. We couldn't do it, so we renovated. But with the thought of having our own, I get all that. I just think that just because, as Matt said, it fits under the 500,000 doesn't, I don't think, qualify for the largeness of the project to be in Board of Control. That, we agree that we want to do it. So, I'm going to support this today. But I think the next time you come back, it should really be, as you said, the global view, so that we're not just slowly piecemealing it through Board of Control, and then suddenly we've got, $2 or $3 or $4 million in a project where we may be getting a lot of questions that we probably should have asked before we got that far along. So that's my only concern is, as with the jail and getting a really global view of what we're doing with the jail, I'd like to also do that with the diversion center, if we can, as we move closer to really understanding what we're going to be engaged in.
I appreciate that, council member. I think it's important for us to just get started, to start gathering the facts, figures of what the program is ultimately going to look like. We've got a great base to start with the interim facility. But and I commit to you bringing back the next phase of this through the full council agenda. So thanks.
At a minimum, the Public Safety Committee, but, Committee of the Whole certainly can't hurt either. Thanks, Mike. That's all I'll say.
Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions on this item? Hearing no additional questions, I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second, Nan Baker.
Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-306, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on a purchase order to Breckenridge Kitchen Equipment and Design in the amount not to exceed $359,183 for replacement kitchen equipment for the Jail 2 kitchen at the Justice Center complex.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Board of Control members. This is Matt Reimer again for the Department of Public Works. This is a approved and in progress and appropriated capital project within the Jail 2 facility downtown at the Justice Center. Specifically, this is the major equipment procurement that goes along with our trades, county trades construction effort to replace the failed and failing dishwashing and food waste processing and pots and pans washing and associated appliance and utilities infrastructure in Jail 2. Currently, the systems that were installed in the mid 2010s is now obsolete and beyond repair. We have worked with the Trinity Food Services contract provider with the Sheriff's Department to have in place an interim tray washing facility. And we're working with the state, ODRC Bureau of Adult Detention, specifically on coordinating this project, as well as corrections, City of Cleveland, and our design consultant teams. So this is of a time critical nature. We'd appreciate your consideration. This was a formal bid given the dollar amount, and the bid returned 2 responses. One was deemed non-compliant, and this is the resulting bid that we're recommending approval on. It is approved from a technical standpoint, and it came in at approximately $41,000 below the county estimate and the architectural estimate for these pieces of equipment. Ready to answer any of your questions.
Are there any questions?
Yes, this is Dale, and my question
New
is,
Bronco 2021 convertible,
My
48,000.
my question is that given that we're moving toward construction of a new correction center, how much are you aware of that's out there in terms of additional repairs that are going to have to be done to the existing Jail 1 and Jail 2 facility?
Councilman Miller, I am keenly aware of all the things that need attention within the jail, and I am also keenly aware of the programming and efforts for the jail replacement. And every day I'm making decisions and recommendations with both of those efforts in mind: how to keep jail compliance and work with the sheriff's corrections, Sheriff Island and Rhonda Gibson, as to how to best put our resources into the existing facility while continuing the effort to move forward on a replacement jail. This is one of those projects that has to be done to maintain current operations through the end of the life of this jail. And depending on the decisions made at the steering committee, may also be of need for transported inmates if the Justice Center remains in its current location and there still needs to be inmate holding food services throughout the day. But in any event, this equipment will not go to waste. It is needed desperately for the current facility and can be reused in other types of facilities should we need to. As an example, we have relocated past equipment in the past to the men's shelter, county-owned men's shelter on 2100 Lakeside for their use instead of discarding or otherwise selling equipment. So we can make use of this kind of equipment into the future. Your other question asked about other aspects. We do have a request for bid that will go out soon for elevator modernization services within Jail 2. And I would be before council on that project. But we've set up that bid structure to be flexible in what elevators we award for modernization. This is to keep us in good standing with the code enforcement officials of the city of Cleveland and safety procedures for elevators, as well as recognize that we may come to a point where we're looking to minimize our investments in the new facility, depending on where the new jail project status is at. So I'm looking at that every day as to how to thread that needle, and look forward to answering any of your questions on any of those upcoming initiatives.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any more questions?
I have one, Nan Baker.
Okay.
So thanks, Matt, for that explanation, and thanks for knowing that that won't go to waste if we do in fact move. Are you thinking that this equipment can go to the new jail? I mean, this is set up for a jail, and we haven't built the kitchen yet at the new jail. So can we know that this is fairly new equipment and it can be incorporated into the new jail?
To the councilwoman, I think a more likely alternative would be that, as I understand the efforts through the steering committee, I don't believe we're anywhere near a decision, or anywhere, if a decision was made, the projects for a new justice center or a renovated justice center would be aligned with the new jail. So we're going to have need for this facility at its location, even after the new jail is constructed. So I personally don't believe that this equipment will be in use beyond its service here. Now, if I'm wrong on that, and there's a more accelerated exit out of jail 2, then that equipment can be reused if the condition warrants. But it's also a high demand environment. It's a very hard use environment in the jail kitchen, and 5 years would probably be all I'd expect to get out of this equipment, just based on the life of the previous equipment, which was 6 years.
Okay. And Matt, I know I'm sure I'm wrong on this, but when we realized that improvements needed to be made to the kitchen with the trays being criticized and all the different things that refrigeration, I believe, and the washing of towels, and didn't we replace some of that equipment back when it was first brought to our attention that the need for certain things in the jail needed to be improved?
With respect to, we did a lot of improvements down in the kitchen, and in particular, repair of existing appliance infrastructure, repair of utilities, helping the corrections department and leadership team clean out a lot of the dry stores and kitchen areas. And we did work with Sheriff's Fiscal on their maintenance contracts for those existing pieces of equipment. But this would be the first pieces of equipment on the dishwashing side. And by that, I mean tray washing and pots and pans washing and food waste processing. These are the first pieces that we've replaced since that time. We had this project designed in January of last year, got interrupted a bit by COVID, and then in our efforts there, and just bid momentum, and now we're ready to go and hoping we can continue.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any additional questions?
Madam Chair, I just have a couple follow-up questions.
Sure.
Matt, I thought when the Trinity contract put in place, there was a capital fund created within that contract to cover expenses like this. Do you recall that, or no? Or did we end up setting a fund under that contract?
Trevor, I'll do my best to answer that. I may ask for a follow-up from Donna Khalil, but yes, I did believe that they had some capital allotment for equipment, and it's my understanding that they use that to replace a number of failed convection ovens and some other cooking equipment. But I believe that based on the condition at the time and the known project that was going forward on this dishwashing equipment, that was not part of their contract vision as far as being able to use that contract to replace. Now, in the interim, as I stated at the beginning, we did work with Trinity and with Rhonda's team and the sheriff's fiscal team, and they have put in partnership with us. We helped install it. They brought in a temporary machine just to keep tray washing so that the right kinds of meals can be prepared by the Trinity team. So we have been collaborative with them, but I think they use that capital allotment on other kinds of appliances, like I mentioned, convection ovens and some other cooking equipment that needed to be replaced.
Okay, can you follow up whenever you get a chance? I was just curious if we.
I know that because we're doing the installations.
Okay.
Hey, Trevor,
Understood.
this is
Understood.
Laura.
Will do, Trevor.
Trevor, this is Laura Sims from the Sheriff's Office, and what Matt talked about as far as the Trinity budget is correct, that we knew that the dishwashers were going to be updated, and that was not part of that contract.
So Laura, do you know offhand do those funds replenish every year, or have we exhausted the entire kind of capital fund within the Trinity contract already?
It was, I would have to take a look at that specifically, but I know that there was a amount set aside at the beginning for equipment and that kind of equipment that needed to get replaced right away. I don't know if they expended the full amount of that already, but I know that's supposed to be there in case they need to make, updates as things break or we move along. But I can get back to you on it and find out what the balance of that amount is. It's not an every year thing.
Okay. And then Matt, just to follow up from something you said, I mean, the intention, I believe, right, when we build a new jail somewhere, we won't be running 2 kitchens though, right? I mean, I thought the intention would be that if we were, if there was a need for food at the Justice Center, it would be more probably brown bag. We would not be preparing and cooking meals at the Justice Center as well once we move to a new jail. Is that, I just want to try to follow up.
Well, I think, and Rhonda might be on the call to be able to answer some more question on that, but my thought on that is it depends. I think what's going to happen is it's going to depend on what happens with the new facility, and if we move everybody over at once or if there's a stage thing. So it may be that the kitchen is open like temporarily till we get the inmates moved out. After that, I don't believe that the intention is to run 2 jails at once or 2 kitchens at once, but during the transition, there may be 2 going.
Trevor, this is Rhonda Gibson. Just
Good
so
morning,
you know, if at that time we still have the contracted vendor for food service, I believe that they would probably propose to us whether they would just have full scale services at the new facility and possibly operate a lower scale at the Justice Center. I would think if you realistically, you would probably only have the one at the new jail and then transport meals, but I can't say for sure until we get closer to planning and go from there and see where our contracted vendor is at the time as well.
Trevor, I'll just add into this. Obviously, I think what you're speculating is probably correct. That there will probably be the kitchen will be at the new facility, and there will be brown bag provided lunches. But we are quite a few years out to having that facility. So in the interim right now, Matt's point that we're going to need this equipment for at least the next, I would say, 3 years. That's how long I think it'll take for us ultimately to be able to get into the new facility if everything continues to move forward in a positive fashion. So, yeah, I don't foresee us having a secondary kitchen operational.
Thanks. Matt, one final question. Is there do you know what kind of warranty comes with the larger equipment we're buying here?
Yes, we do have some warranties, Trevor. I can work to get that to you offline. I don't have the actual bid specification warranties in front of me, but I will work to get that to you. Yeah, there are manufacturer's warranties that come with this equipment.
Curious to see how it compares to with how long we'll be more than likely be using the equipment. So thanks, Matt.
I understand. Now I will get back to you directly. And Trevor, I'm sorry for the confusing statement about the alternate kitchen. I'm just a guy that doesn't like to close his door on options. So that was more to the point of my comment.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions on this item? Hearing no additional questions, I make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-307, Department of Development, recommending a U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Brownfield Revolving Fund loan to Manufacturing Advocacy and Growth Network in the amount not to exceed $500,000 for environmental remediation of asbestos-containing building materials and petroleum-containing soils associated with the former Margaret A. Ireland School building located at 1800 East 63rd Street in the city of Cleveland.
Good morning. This is Jan Bain with the Department of Development, Brownfield's manager of our Brownfield grants. This application came into us from Magnet. They recently purchased the Margaret Ireland School building, as stated above. They are in the process of moving their operations. They have been working, as many know, manufacturing advocacies, Greater Cleveland, Northeast Ohio for 35 years. They've been in a leased space. The lease is coming up soon, and the space that they have right now is kind of overwhelming, larger than what they really need. The school is a perfect fit that they just recently purchased. It was built in 1962. It has a lot of high ceilings on the one-story part of the building. And then the second part of the building is two-story. They will be remodeling, and that's why we need the asbestos abatement to get the asbestos tile out of there, so that they can take the two-story and open it up for the manufacturing equipment that they use. There'll also be offices. Some of the Cleveland Public School system that does the training, they will be relocating there. So it's kind of a win for all type of a location, right along Chester there, across from Dave's Supermarket. This building was, again, 1962, but it's perfect for retrofitting to the needs of our manufacturing advocacy group. They've come to us. The grant actually expires at the end of this month, so it's kind of a win-win for everybody, that we can finally use our money. And they have petroleum issues that very small, but that were located in the back of the building where there was a former fuel tank that they used for buses way back when. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, for the asbestos removal. Now, I do also have a representative on behalf of the applicant, if you have any questions for the applicant.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
I have a question, if I may, Nan Baker.
Okay.
So it sounds like an exciting project, and Magnet's done great work, and really pleased to see them moving forward. I guess the only question I would have is, will Magnet be coming back to us for any county funds? I mean, do we, same as with the diversion center, although I know this is a Magnet project, will we be able to see the big picture as to what it is that they're going to be building out, and what county resources perhaps they're going to be asking for in order to meet the goal of
Completing the building, yes.
yeah.
I'm going to refer to Lee Chilcote as the representative, because I'm only here for the program that I'm running. Lee, are you on?
Yes, I am. And the answer to that question is yes. We do plan to seek additional funds from the county in terms of a separate loan. And we'd be prepared now or then to completely to tell you of the nature and scope of the project. It is pretty exciting. It will be 57,000 square feet, reduced to something below 50,000, but will be an open center for the whole community, manufacturing community, manufacturers, students from CMSD and the like. And I won't go into detail here because this request is limited to the US EPA funds.
Sure. Can I ask you, do you have any idea how much you'll be asking from the county just to get a kind of a scope of what it is that we may be looking at in order to assist?
Yes, $1 million will be our request, and there is similar requests from the city of Cleveland.
Okay. So with that, are you planning before you ask for that million to come into committee or council, or how are you planning on Economic Development Committee? Is that what you're
Yes.
planning on presenting?
The matter is before the county executive now, and we do plan to pursue the regular procedures. Paul Herdig is on and is involved.
I'm a council member. The request has been made. We are reviewing, one of the things we're reviewing is the extent of support other public bodies are giving. We are awaiting word from the city of Cleveland, which I've been told we'll get fairly soon. And we would absolutely intend to bring the economic development loan, if we make one, through our review process, which includes both the Community Improvement Corporation, and then it would come forward. And we would certainly be pleased to brief this to County Council, as it's a very exciting project, one we think is very worthwhile. But we haven't yet determined, Councilwoman, the extent of our proposed economic development loan.
Okay. It is an exciting project and certainly will support you today. I'm just curious again about what the big picture looks like and what kind of funding from the county you'll be requesting, along with who else is participating. So I'll wait to hear, but congratulations on getting this far along.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions on this item?
Yes, this is Dale, and I'd like to follow up on Ms. Baker's line of questioning, and first of all, to say congratulations to Mr. Chilcote, and I share the excitement about where you're going with this. My question is whether any county assistance will be requested regarding the operation of the facility, or will it be just for the construction?
Just in the construction, Councilman Miller.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any additional questions?
Madam Chairwoman, just one, Paul, just to follow up as well. Do you have anticipation of when a decision will be made and when you think it would come to council after it go to the loan committee and stuff like that? Do you have a target date?
Thank you, Trevor. We would anticipate a proposed economic development loan would follow the full process for CCCI review and 3 readings. So this would put it into certainly August by the time it would come to council. And then given the recess schedule, we anticipate that final approval would not be until September.
Okay, so you're planning for, if it goes forward, for potentially an August 3rd first reading?
It could, Trevor. Again, it depends on the timing of this Community Improvement Corporation review as well. So it may or may not make the August meeting.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure what you have in the back of your mind, the second August meeting being canceled for recess. So that would push it to September. Just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that timeline.
Are there any additional questions on this item? Okay, hearing no additional questions, I make a motion to approve this item. Can I get a second?
Second, Ann Baker.
Second by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Thank you. Next item, BC 2021-308, Department of Development, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 6650, which will result in a payment to Downtown Cleveland Alliance in the amount of $14,188 for operational support for the period June 28th, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, recommending the payment in connection with said RFP exemption and authorizing Downtown Cleveland Alliance to retain $85,812 of funds approved by board approval numbers BC 2020-347 dated June 22nd, 2020, and BC 2020-407 dated July 20th, 2020, as an additional portion of 2021 operating support.
Good morning, Board of Control members. This is Kassan Bahor with Department of Development. I'm the Business Service Manager. This authorization resolution is two parts here. Annually, we supply the Downtown Cleveland Alliance with a $100,000 annual payment for their Special Improvement District initiative. And last year, the board approved $400,000 for the Downtown Recovery Fund that was managed by Downtown Cleveland Alliance. And they managed the funds so well that they had a surplus of $85,812 remaining. So the first part of this is to get authorization for them to keep that $85,812 and to convert it into the support payment that we usually give them, the $100,000. And also the second part of this is for us to supply them another $14,188 so that we can get to the $100,000 that we usually give them for their Special Improvement District initiative. I welcome any questions, and we also have Executive Director of Downtown Cleveland Alliance, Mike Deemer, to discuss any programmatic questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions on this item?
Madam Chair, I have one follow-up for Kasana.
Sure.
I thought, and I could be wrong, last year's funds were funded out of the CARES dollars, the 85,000, and this says general fund, or is that a different pot of dollars?
Last year was, Paul, are you on here? I don't remember exactly, but
Trevor, thank you for the question. It actually came from the Economic Development Fund because the reason for this was the civil unrest which occurred last May, and that actually was not an eligible use of the CARES Act funds. So the $400,000 was from the Economic Development Fund.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, I knew it was a different fund, so I just wanted to make sure that we could use it for general operating, but since it's that, okay, thank you.
Are there any additional questions on this item?
Just one question.
Sure.
So just to be clear on the 400,000 that was approved and there's 85 left, does the given that influx of money, does the Downtown Cleveland retailers where this went, do they need the additional money, or are they pretty good this year because of the influx of over 300,000 that was given? I'm just curious, was any of that be given to them outside of repairs and I don't know, equipment or loss of goods? I'm not quite sure. I know there were some insurance coverages in that too.
So Councilwoman, I'll speak first and then defer to Director Deemer. Our staff, especially led by our Economic Development Manager, Michael May, kept a very close eye on the use of the Downtown Recovery Fund and insisted that it be used only for the authorized purposes. So that is why they did not need the additional 85,000. There were no eligible expenses to match for the $85,000. If I might ask Director Deemer to amplify that in terms of the extent to which the cleanup needs were met through the Downtown Recovery Fund.
Sure. Appreciate the question, Councilwoman Baker and Director Hurdig. Happy to try to answer that question on the department's behalf. The program last year with the fund was very successful in meeting the needs of retailers that were impacted by the unrest on May 30th. As Paul has described, we were able to work with the fund to address all of the physical damage, lost inventory, expenses that were not covered by insurance. The remainder that's left over is really the result of being vigilant about making sure that we were only using the grant funds for the purposes that were originally anticipated. We did not really, with the fund, get into impacts that were related to COVID-19. And as you can imagine, it was sometimes hard to distinguish as businesses closed and then made decisions about whether and when to reopen in light of the decreased consumer activity in downtown over the course of 2020. So we didn't use those funds to support operating or issues that seem to be more directly related to COVID-19 as opposed to the physical damage that occurred on May 30th. All of the businesses that received funds have reopened and are up and running. We are working very closely with all of them to try to help them recover strongly in 2021. We do not anticipate utilizing these funds as additional grant support for the retailers. We are keeping a close eye on our vacancies. We did have a number of businesses close over the last year, and we are looking at the need for additional grant or loan funds in the community more broadly to help us fill vacancies, but we don't anticipate using these funds for that purpose.
Okay, if I may follow, Mr.
Please.
Demo. So the PPP money that I know businesses received from the federal government, CARES Act money, grants, loans, lots of money flowing to some of the smaller businesses. Do you still feel that you still feel that there is a need that the county also contribute the same 100,000 that we do annually? And there isn't perhaps I don't want to say too much money, but still a lot of money flowing in. And just because we've annually given 100,000, do you definitely see that there is a need?
Yes, and I appreciate the clarification, Councilwoman. Yeah, we definitely see the need, and I would distinguish between the purposes. A lot of the federal dollars and county dollars and state dollars that are flowing into businesses are going to help with their operating needs, the economic consequences of the last year. The contribution that the county has made historically and is considering making today to Downtown Cleveland Alliance has really been a contribution in lieu of the assessment that property owners pay to support the special improvement district, to allow the Alliance to provide a range of services to downtown businesses and residents, including direct support, cleanliness and safety operations, social services, events, business attraction and retention. So that operating support really helps us do all of those things. And I would say to you and your colleagues on the Board of Control, those services, in light of how challenged downtown was through the pandemic and how much the struggle is still very real, those services I think are more needed than ever, and the county's contribution would be greatly appreciated, and we go a long ways towards helping us encourage more workers, visitors, and residents to find their way back into downtown.
Okay, and given that we're going into July and half the year is over, you still feel a need for the 100,000 for the balance of the year?
Yes, again, the demand on services for downtown as more folks are coming back in for work to visit, and we want to accelerate that as much as possible. This support from the county is very important to that effort, and will allow us to meet the needs of both businesses and residents as we try to welcome folks back into downtown.
All right. Well, thank you. And you do great work with the Cleveland Alliance and want to be supportive. Just wanted to be clear on how the money was being spent.
Absolutely. I appreciate the questions and appreciate the support.
Thank you, Chair.
Are there any additional questions on this item? Okay, if there are no additional questions, I make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second. Nan Baker.
Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-309, Department of Information Technology, submitting an amendment to a contract with Mythics Incorporated for Oracle database software support and maintenance for the period June 1st, 2016 through May 31st, 2021, to extend the time period to May 31st, 2022, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $367,525.06.
Good morning, Janelle Green on behalf of the Department of IT. This is an amendment to the agreement we have with Mythics to, again, extend our support and maintenance for Oracle database licenses. This will give us extra time to repost an RFP that we posted at the at the end of 2020 for not only licensing, but also other expanded services. Unfortunately, we did not get a good showing in terms of the proposals submitted by vendors, and we only received one proposal back for all the support and licensing at that time. So this will give us time to go back to redraft that RFP and repost for additional support as well as this maintenance and licensing. And this was done in cooperation with Fiscal Department, HHS, and the Court of Common Pleas.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
Yes, this is Dale, and my question is whether the lack of competition contributed to a higher cost being required, or did the cost come in as what was expected?
This is actually about what was expected. With the RFP, though, it was for an expansion of different services and support that we would have needed with some other projects. And I think with the RFP, I think we may have, we're too narrow and too focused that didn't allow vendors to really respond in the way that they need to, or maybe didn't understand how to respond. So that this gives us time to go back to the drawing board and make sure that we're writing not only a thoughtful RFP, but also that that really we can get a wider base of respondents to that document.
And also, how does the cost for the coming year compare with what we're currently paying?
It's in alignment. I believe it's about of between 5 to 10% increase, which again is kind of standard for support and maintenance. So this is in alignment with what the normal IT cost would be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions?
I have a question, Nan Baker.
Okay.
Sure.
So was, is it Mythics? Was Mythics
Yes.
A surprise that they didn't want to renew their contract after 5 years?
No, because the Mythics is typically, support and maintenance for the licensing. They're, they usually strict. That's what they offer. For the other services that we were looking for was not in their wheelhouse. So instead of just offering pricing on just the licensing, they didn't offer any proposal because of how, again, the RFP was written. So I think, again, when we go back to the drawing board, we can say you can supply a pricing for all of these other services, but also separate from that, you can supply pricing for just this support and maintenance licensing. And so I think we'll get a better response once we do that.
Okay, and do you anticipate if 367,000 is what you need to extend, are you extending with who? With Mythics?
Yes, it is with Mythics for this, and it's a 1 year extension of the Oracle licensing.
So if you go out for another 5-year contract, is this going to be approximately that amount times 5? Is that what the kind of money we're looking at to renew?
It would, because of the other licensing, we were figuring about 3 years for the next, for the RFP. And so we figured it'd be a little bit more for the other servicing. So I would say about $450,000 annually.
$450 annually. Okay, all right. And I guess the only, kind of obvious question here is that this ended in May of 2021, and this has been a 5-year contract. We didn't know perhaps early enough back into earlier this year that this could have been a longer process than anticipated because of the added services that we're looking for.
Honestly, we thought we posted this in December of 2020, thinking that we had sufficient enough time. But in the course of this RFP, we had a number of addendums that went out. So additional pieces that went out with that RFP, and also the time to really answer the questions from the vendors. And then by the time the RFP closed, we're looking at assessments and we'll try to figure out what we can do and what projects to cut because of the lack of response that we got from vendors. So when we were looking at all of that stuff, unfortunately, time got the better of us. And so now this gives us plenty of time to address all the issues that we encountered with that first RFP, and to give us time to be able to really be able to respond to all those proposals and to get us through this process in a more timely fashion.
Okay, and is Mythics, for the services that they're continuing to give, nothing in addition, are we paying a premium price for just a year?
No, we usually purchase from them in 1-year increments, so it's not a premium.
Not a premium. Okay. Well, thank you for your answers. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any additional questions on this item? Hearing none, I make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McAleer. Oh, or was that Councilman Miller?
I seconded.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-310, Fiscal Office, Department of Purchasing, on behalf of the County Treasurer, submitting an amendment to a master services agreement with KeyBank National Association for banking and treasury services for the period April 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2024, for additional funds for procurement card program services in the total amount not to exceed $435,470, to expand the scope of services by adding the County Planning Commission in the amount not to exceed $3,600, effective June 28th, 2021, and for additional funds for various departments listed as items B1 through 8 on the printed agenda.
Catherine Tkachuk here for the Department of Purchasing. This is an amendment to our agreement to add the Planning Commission for the P card, as well as additional funds for various departments through 2024. The Planning Commission has not been part of the P card program in the past, and they have requested to have that done to purchase necessary agency expenses where vendors only accept a credit card. So some examples of those can be some of their Zoom premium subscription, or for domain licenses renewals. Typically they had done those with an employee paying for them and then being reimbursed in the past, so they had requested that. Additionally, other departments, when they initially do the P card contract, they do sort of a low estimate on what they believe they would need. And so as coming back, we went back to them and they identified, based on their operational needs, any additional costs that they would expect to need through the end of the contract in March 2024. And these additional amounts are added because of that. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
Just for clarification, if I may.
Sure.
So the $435,000 that you're asking for, is that part of the original contract? And if I read your backup correctly, you're just asking for it all now instead of piecemealing it every year. Did I read that correctly? Or is this amount in addition to what the contract used to be?
It's in addition to what the contract was, but it's the amount for the through the end of the contract. So this is not an amount just for this calendar year. It's the amount through the end of the contract that would be needed for the P card.
Okay, so then I guess the question was, why are additional dollars needed beyond what we thought was going to be needed at the end of 2024?
Yeah, so, and the way departments normally give an original estimate, they're typically kind of a guess and they're low estimates. However, as they look into operational needs, they identified the need for additional funds. So we went back to each department and they identified the funds that they believe they were going to need for the rest of the year, the rest of the contract. Again, Board of Elections, for example, had to purchase a lot of things based on additional elections and some needs related to even COVID-19 and things like that. So this is the department's estimates as to what they would need through the end of the contract.
If I may, is that an unusual request that they thought they had enough, projecting what they think they need, and then come back and, for example, Board of Elections for 120,000? Like you said, I'm sure they got some CARES money, and we have also, through the county, I believe, helped them. Is this an unusual ask of money, given that it's considerable, 435,000 they were off the mark on?
You know what, let me follow up and see. Michelle maybe Hicks, who oversaw this for purchasing, may be on and can answer that question. Otherwise, I may have to follow up on that one.
All right, the other big one was the juvenile court for 170,000. What for 170,000 were they off in what they thought they would need back in April of 2020, especially given, you know, the CARES money and all the other money that's been kind of helped through 2020. Just to, yeah, if you can get back to me, certainly we'll support this, but would like to know.
Actually, I am on the call. If you can hear me, it's Michelle Hicks with the Department of Purchasing.
Yes.
So I actually did go back to the juvenile court and Board of Elections, and from what they explained to me was that COVID was the reason they increased a lot, especially the juvenile court. They were saying they felt the need to put more juveniles up, provide for the juveniles a little more frequently. So that's why they decided to go with so much this time around. And with the Board of Elections, I know they did end up going over quite a bit. And so to mitigate that, they just wanted to be sure they didn't go over. So they increased it by what they knew they wouldn't exceed. If that helps to answer your question.
It does. And none of the federal funds that we all received didn't help them with their mitigation of expenses that they didn't thought they would have?
Well, see, this is the P-card contract. So these are items that they're not making purchase order purchases for or contract purchases. So these are items that are one-off emergency items that aren't supposed to be reoccurring.
Yeah, and Councilwoman, what we do with this, so this allows them to use that sort of purchasing type of purchasing to do it. However, you know, we do review, like we reviewed, departments are able to submit if they have charges that are specifically able to be covered under federal dollars. We look at that and review, so they can submit those. This just allows them to use the P card to purchase them.
I see. Okay, well, I appreciate the answers. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Are there any additional questions on this item? Okay, hearing no additional questions, I make a motion to approve this. Is there a second?
Second, Miller.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-311, Court of Common Pleas, Juvenile Court Division, recommending an award and enter into an agreement with Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, in the amount not to exceed $125,000 for management of the Cuyahoga County Family Centered Support Services Project for juvenile court youth for the period January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021.
Good morning, this is Sarah Baker with Juvenile Court. This is our annual agreement that we do with DCFS, the Department of Children and Family Services, for our Family Centered Support Services project. DCFS completes an RFP for these services, and then we contract with DCFS so that we can access those services as well. These are community-based vendors that are meeting with our youth and families out in the communities and providing various types of high-fidelity wraparound services.
Okay, are there any questions on this item?
Just one question, if I may, Nan Baker.
Sure.
So this is an annual agreement. So we knew this going in. You were delayed by Infor by over 6 months. Is that what you're saying?
I would not say that the entire 6 months was due to Infor. However, probably at least half of that time was due to complications in Infor, as well as misguidance or misinformation regarding process and procedure. We did send out an email ahead of time. I hope everybody received it with a little bit of detail. Hopefully that helps answer a little bit more.
And if I may, is this only for 1 year?
Yes.
And because it's an annual, is there a reason why we only do it once a year? Or, I mean, we don't extend it out to a 3-year term, or?
It's one of those programs that we kind of also reevaluate on an annual basis of whether or not how many kids we're sending, whether or not there's still availability within the DCFS, those providers, that they still have availability to take juvenile court youth. So it's something that we are constantly evaluating throughout the year. We meet with DCFS regularly to make sure that everything is going smoothly. So we're also kind of making sure that everything is going well before we decide to extend for an additional year.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, hearing no additional questions, I make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second, Miller.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-312, Office of the Medical Examiner, recommending an award on requisition 3910 and enter into a contract with Qualtrics Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $21,744.50 for a sole source purchase of 105 Qualtrics compliant software licenses and hosted platform and related training services for the period May 1st, 2021 through April 30th, 2022.
Hugh Shannon from the Medical Examiner's Office. This is a compliance software that will help the forensic labs track documents that are required for our various accreditations. And it will include some training for the forensic staff to be able to get familiar with the software, how to use it, how to make use of it, especially at accreditation time. There's a lot of paperwork, obviously, that goes through the laboratories that need to be tracked. When we have audits, it's a full couple of weeks of pulling all the forms and all the reports, and so this will greatly reduce that task for the number of accreditations that we have to comply with every year, and it is grant funded.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Okay, hearing no questions, I make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second, Miller.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-313, Sheriff's Department submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 6007, which will result in an award recommendation to Verizon Communications Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $16,000 for cellular services for 24 devices for correction center staff for the period June 28th, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, and recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Hi, this is Laura Sims from the Fiscal Office. We're requesting the approval for the devices for cellular service with Verizon, and these are for devices within the jail. We had originally reached out to the countywide contract, AT&T, to try and get them to help us with some issues that we were having with the service. There were dead spots in the jail so that the devices that were being used were intermittent, and this was creating an issue. Plus, we were having some issues with the upload speeds for the for live streaming of video. It was really poor. In any case, in discussions with AT&T, since it was outside of the scope of the contract, they would not provide the equipment that we would need to be able to make these the cellular devices and the upload speeds functional within the jail. So Verizon has agreed to that. They have now installed something to help boost the signal for us so that the cell devices can be used throughout the jail, and we have upload speeds that are triple what we were getting with AT&T. Now, in addition to that, I can let you know that IT is in the process of putting out a RFP or RFB, something for the follow-on contract for the countywide one, and we are working with them to ensure that the specifications that we need in order to be able to function properly are going to be included in that new contract. So hopefully, as we move forward, we'll be able to go away from having our own service and become part of the county service as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Hearing no questions, I make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-314, Department of Health and Human Services, Cuyahoga Job and Family Services, submitting an amendment to an agreement with the Cuyahoga County Department of Workforce Development for job readiness and training for recipients of temporary assistance for needy families and food assistance employment and training services for the period July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2021, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2022, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $325,307.44.
Good morning, Paul Porter, Health and Human Services on behalf of Cuyahoga Job and Family Services. This is the annual agreement that Job and Family Services submits to work with the Department of Workforce Development. It's state mandated by the Ohio Revised Code that the County Department of Job and Family Services has to enter into agreements with one-stop operators and partners implementing WIOA programs, or the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity. In the case of Cuyahoga County, that's the Department of Workforce Development. This is the second amendment to the original contract. I will note that the dollar amount decreased substantially last year, largely due to the pandemic, and we are increasing the dollar amount slightly, although it's still lower than the value of the original agreement. The original agreement was approximately $421,000. The amendment that was done for July 1st of 20 to June 30th of 21 was $255,000. And based on an analysis of utilization over the prior year and kind of an anticipation of what utilization will look like coming out of the pandemic, we settled on the amount right around $325,000 for the period starting July 1.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Hearing no questions, I make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second, Miller.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-315, Department of Health and Human Services, Cuyahoga Job and Family Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with Enterprise Community Partners Incorporated to promote the Earned Income Tax Credit, Child Care Tax Credit, and provide free tax preparation assistance to low and moderate income individuals and families for the period July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $57,918.
Good afternoon, Paul Porter again on behalf of Cuyahoga Job and Family Services. This is an amendment to the contract that the county has with Enterprise Community Partners, which serves as the lead agency for the county's Earned Income Tax Credit Coalition that does tax preparation for low-income taxpayers throughout the county. This is an amendment to add funds to the agreement that expires the end of this month, June 30th, to account for additional costs incurred by the vendor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. This vendor typically does massive in-person tax preparation events using volunteers, where a number of clients will come for in-person tax prep. And during the pandemic, they had to pivot to a completely virtual model, which necessitated the use of new software to schedule client appointments, as well as schedule slots for volunteers, since they rely on volunteers to fill out the tax forms. Also, they had to purchase signature capture software that met the IRS's requirements for signature capture. You might be aware from filling out your own tax returns that if you don't have, a scanner where you can take a photocopy, if you're doing a virtual appointment, they had to get a software that was able to kind of verify that signature virtually. I answered some advanced questions about this one, specifically related to the increased tax credit that's going to start July 15th. There is a new agreement that's pending before County Council for this contract that it will be heard at committee on Wednesday, June 30th. So we can hopefully talk a little bit more about next year's agreement at that committee meeting.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
Yes, this is Dale, and to follow up on that last piece, does this item that we have here today include any services related to the new tax credit?
Thank you, Councilman Miller. So beyond the fact that completing your taxes for calendar year 2020 automatically qualifies you for that tax credit. Let's say there was somebody who hadn't filed their taxes before, but filed taxes earlier this year as a result of that expanded credit. Those folks would automatically get the increased increased tax credit either by check or by direct deposit, based on the fact that they had filled out their return. There's no special paperwork beyond a tax return that's required for that. So I hope that kind of answers your question. The work that this vendor did in the prior 6 months would lead to folks being able to claim that tax credit and receive payments automatically.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, hearing none, I make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second, Miller.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Moving on to the consent agenda, items BC 2021-316 through 318.
Okay, we'll take a moment to review those items. Are there any questions on the consent agenda items? Hearing no questions, I make a motion to approve. All those in favor say aye.
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 I'm sorry, is there a second?
Second, Miller.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Next item. Is there any other business? Hearing no other business, is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Seeing there's no public comment, I make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Excuse me, Lee?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, if I may, I just wanted to announce that the next meeting of the Board of Control will be held on Tuesday, July 6th, due to the 4th of July holiday.
Oh, thanks, Sharon. Now I make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second, Miller.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.